of May. Actually, it's Armed Forces Day today, and this is GR Mobley on the Parchment microphone at the Constitutional Radio Show, and I'm filling in for Doug while he is out attending the first annual Unite IE Conservative Conference with Dinesh D'Souza and Coulter and many other speakers and guests. Hopefully that becomes a very positive event, and it's not just a first annual, but it really becomes an annual event. Before I get started, last time I did not get a chance to let people know how they can get in contact with me or find out where to buy my books. And you can find me on the internet at Mobius Strip Press, Mobius Strip, STRIPPRESS, so there's two S's, two P's.com. And if you go on my links, you can find out where you can buy them from Amazon and ebooks and so forth. Also, before I get started, I did not take advantage last time of really thanking Doug for giving me the opportunity. And actually, one of the things that really spoke out after meeting Doug and having conversations about the Constitution and working through my first book and getting it published, the fact that Doug actually recognized the solution that I was baking into my first book and moving forward to my second book of convening a convention for Republic review, or basically auditing the federal government on the contract that the states agreed upon in 1789, which was after the ratification process. And so the owners of this Constitution is the states. We, the people of the citizens of each state, are definitely part owners of this, but the fact that Doug actually kind of started seeing into the contract part and actually recognizing the fact that as stakeholders have a legal responsibility to ensure that the contract is being abided by and and those who are executing the contract are in compliance. Well, as you've heard several people and many people today, doesn't matter, even on the liberal side, you'll hear people ranting about the lack of following the Constitution when it comes to either personal rights or whether it comes to corporate cronyism or what have you. There's all sorts of violations that we need to, and we can fix. And that solution would be by coalescing the states, again, through a convention. And again, the convention isn't a convention to rewrite the Constitution. And I know there's a lot of people that have this fear of a constitutional convention of rewriting. You got to remember when Madison pulled these brilliant people together and when they all coalesced in Philadelphia, it's not like they concocted some idea and then rammed it down everybody's throat. There's no way states are going to ratify and accept anything that's going to be a huge compromise to states' rights and or individual rights and sovereignties. It's hard for me to fathom how we could actually get to a point that would allow the states to literally sell or, abdicate their responsibilities over the citizens of their particular states within the republic. Anyway, so I am thanking Doug, and I really appreciate his opportunity in letting me come into the show and backfill for him and actually trying to put these ideas out into the airways so people can start slowly digesting this concept of auditing the contract and holding the executor, the delegated authority, accountable and holding them into compliance. And there's easy ways we can start fixing this. And that, in essence, is the core of my book. And so over the past year, and as a matter of fact, we're coming up on a year of when I first met Doug, we've really gone through a whirlwind of debate and discussion, and it seems like we're more of a brother and kindred than I would say of opposing ideas and forces. And so it was very easy for us to start quickly aligning and looking at how we can utilize our resources and start influencing a change to put us back into a constitutional orthodoxy. Let me move forward into the comparison for constitutional and or conservative entertainers in contrast to what Doug does. Doug really does have a focus, and this show, Constitutional Radio, really focuses on how the Constitution is relevant in everything. If you went through the list of all the usurpations and all the violations and all the things, it's just, can they really do that? Can the federal government really do that? Whether it be the IRS, NSA, Benghazi, it's such a long list. Violating the Commerce Clause, violating the separations of powers and so forth. I mean, it's such a long list. One could even go into individual issues such as immigration. Is immigration really a problem, or is the entitlement state the problem? And then the entitlement state in itself is a huge pile of problems, all unconstitutional. Again, if you remember when Madison was president in 1817, and I've said this before on the show, that in 1817, when they tried to bring to Madison a bill that would create the Department of Transportation, Madison said, hey, this is a great thing. And he really wanted to do this. But in his veto, he said, you can't use the General Welfare Clause to justify this. You can't use the Commerce Clause to justify this, the Necessary and Proper Clause to justify it, nor can you use the Supremacy Clause to justify this. So when Madison vetoed that, he basically told Congress that if you want to take on a new role, responsibility, or power, you have to amend the Constitution. And so when you compare Doug to a lot of the conservative entertainers out there, most of them aren't really conservative. And when you hear somebody, and I don't want to mention any names, I may mention a name or two, but when you hear conservative entertainers who, whether they be on TV, whether they be on the radio, internet, or what have you, when you hear them say, well, now that they've passed this Obamacare, Republicans have to go and, either present their own plan of how we're going to nationalize health care or what have you. That's not a constitutional conservative ideology or mind model. A true mind model is, well, the Constitution doesn't give us this power. If we really want to do this, we have to amend the Constitution and follow the Article 5 process. And so if you compare and contrast and listen to, you can start, I think, differentiating between who are really conservatives and who are really more in line, or I should say, doing the status quo or the parroting for the Republican or the Democratic Party. They all seem to be very well within a progressive mind frame of taking on liberties and taking away from you your choices and your opportunities. Obamacare is definitely going to be moving in that direction, where we're going to lose more and more doctors, more and more access to health care. And as they move towards the single payer system, there's no doubt that the single payer system is designed to collapse. We will have less doctors, less hospitals. And when you look at what happened in Britain, and in every case where they've gone to a single payer system, it has always gotten worse because there is no competition anymore. You are paying the one entity, and that same entity is providing you a service. And so it's monopolizing an industry that used to be the best in the world, and it still is, and we have time to fix it. If you really want to fix this and move forward, you can start working with your neighbors, those at the Tea Party, or if you're associated to the John Birch Society, you can start having a dialogue of setting up a post that I talk about in my book, that what you want to do is kind of organize yourself and start holding your local representatives accountable. If you read the second book, there's a part where one would think I have an affinity towards Glenn Beck, and I really don't. The fact of the matter is, when you look at what Glenn Beck possesses in his resources, in his tool bag, he has a huge presence with internet news, satellite radio news, television, and so forth. So he has a ready-made machine that can provide content and relative intelligence for the Republic that could actually provide a command and control, which I talk about in the back end of my book. On the front end, I really talk more about the ground battle of how to go out and really just confronting those people who are representing you. And the mind behind that is, or my mind model behind that is, if you think about it, that person represents thousands of people, whoever that is, whether it's the sheriff, the water board commissioner, or whoever's sitting on the water board, city council, mayor, what have you. It's not just one person writing a petition. It's a person that represents lots of people that are writing a petition to the state legislatures to call them to convene a convention to audit the contract, or for republic review, as I call it. Anywho, if one wants to stop the social programs, and if one really wants to turn around this nation, we're going to have to go down this path of austerity. We're already starting to head down this path of austerity. There are lots of people that are having a hard time getting jobs, millennials, and as businesses start moving away, those people that are trying to enter into the workforce are finding themselves having to get more education, and then finding out that they're either too educated or they don't necessarily have the experience or what have you to actually compete for jobs. And so it's getting tighter and tighter. And as we regulate more and more, we actually find ourselves in a less and less available workspace. And so if we want to change those, we have to open up the free market, and we have to start shutting down the indolence, or I would say the social programs of giving people what they think they're entitled to. Because I was never brought up that I was entitled to take something from somebody else. And I ask you to consider this. If you've worked all your life, and you've developed wealth, and you've obtained things, it's got to be immoral for somebody to come in and say, you don't deserve that because these people over here don't have that. That, in essence, is theft. And when you use government to take those things, or to take your wealth, or to take your income in feeding other people, it's one thing to give of oneself in charity. And the Christian faith actually teaches us to do that. But the Christian faith does not teach us that it's okay to be compelled. You should be able to reach into your wallet and be able to grab what you want to give. And if you can give some people have those kinds of hearts, and I believe Americans have those kinds of hearts, that they can really help those people who really need it. But it's pathetic when you find that there's the majority of the people on social programs that are finding themselves capable of doing work, but they just refuse to, because the barrier to move towards productivity is just too much effort for them. And it's just too easy to remain into the welfare or the indolent state or what have you. As we continue to increase unemployment benefits, as we continue to increase the food stamp rolls, and we continue to increase all these different social programs and handouts, there's no end to this. It's one thing if there was a design or an end in place, but there's not. There's no process to get people, you have to hold them accountable. To get people to actually become self-reliant, you have to hold them accountable. And so it was a very effective process when local community and church leaders would come in to meet with those who needed help and assistance to determine what level of help and assistance they needed. Then the compassion could truly flow, and those people were accountable. They learned their trade, they helped out in other ways in earning or helping learning a skill, and ending up becoming self-sufficient. And so if the process is to help people become self-reliant, our social programs are not designed to do that. Our social programs are literally designed to keep people from contributing to society and becoming a productive member. And I myself find that as an immoral fact. And there's easy ways to fix this. And one of the easiest ways to fix this is moving this towards the state level and pushing this back to the republic and the local communities. However, I digress, because it's time for us to recognize all those who are paying for this hour, and I think we need to go into a commercial break. So I'm going to turn it back to the original Joe here, and let me know when we're ready to come back. Thanks, Joe.